Welcome to this podcast for Brighton School of Business and Management students studying for the Btec Level 5 courses. For this unit you will need to satisfy the criteria exactly as laid down in the assignment brief and as described here, but you should wherever possible use examples from your own organisation and business sector, as well as showing evidence of having studied the unit topics in depth and breadth by referring where appropriate to relevant models, theories and established best practices. To enhance your understanding of these assignment issues, we strongly advise that you also discuss them with operational and senior managers, project leaders and event management specialists within your own organisation. Each section should be approximately 500 words, although this is flexible up to around 600 words, not including graphics or illustrations, so you will need to keep your responses focused on what is being specifically asked for in each section. Section 1. Project management was known in ancient times, but here you will need to research the background to modern project management approaches. Today, project management principles are based on defining objectives, understanding constraints, managing the life cycle of the project, and numerous sub-principles within those. You will need to explain why an essential critical first step in managing any project is to carry out a feasibility study and risk assessment in order to be sure that the project will be viable in financial and non-financial terms. Then discuss the importance of implementing measures and checkpoints to determine if the scope, goals and objectives are being met, if the project stages are completed on time, and if the project comes in at or under budget, and if not, as there is failure, then discuss what action should be taken. Following on from bullet point 1, bullet point 3 is about the principles behind the systems, procedures, project team structures, technological approaches and control systems used in managing most projects. Check out the PMI Book of Knowledge and research systems such as Prince to help with this. The last bullet point is about the closure stage, also known as the close down, and as well as completion of the project activity, this stage also includes the review and evaluation process. It is a critical stage which is often poorly managed. You need to explain what activities should be carried out during this stage and why it is so important. Section 2. Ideally in your responses to this section, you should refer to a range of projects, different in size, complexity and duration, to demonstrate that you are aware of how the structure and roles are different in different types of projects. On bullet point 1, the project organisational structure and roles and responsibilities of each team member will depend on the size, duration and complexity of the project. There is a group of established templates, for example the matrix structure, which can be applied to projects. You will need to focus on the benefits and disadvantages of these, not forgetting to focus on the difference they may make to the roles and responsibilities of the team members and the project manager. Remembering that the theme of this section is the project's human resources, describe the role of the project manager, specialists and other team members in managing and/or contributing to the progress of the project. Don't forget this can include external human resources such as consultants, agency staff, temporary team members and the sponsor or senior management who are not actively involved in the operational activity. For bullet point 3, it can be argued that the leadership needed for a project is not very different to that needed in any business situation, but there are some key differences which we'll need to identify and discuss. One example is that for many projects the team can be a temporary one made up of individuals who may not have worked together before, and this presents the leader with particular problems. For bullet point 4, you will need to discuss the way in which human resource requirements are planned and specified in a range of different projects. Searching on Google using the phrase human resources plus project plus planning will produce many useful links, as will visiting the websites recommended at the end of this podcast. Section 3. This section does require you to use a real-life project that has been agreed in advance with your tutor. It is not acceptable to complete this section in a purely theoretical format. You will need to select a project from within your own organisation or local area of it and prepare plans for that project. Ideally, discuss this with your line manager to find a reasonably complex project which is both useful to your own organisation and also one that you can apply the assignment requirements to. Obtain the approval of your tutor before you proceed. If it is impossible to select an internal project, then talk with your tutor who will help you to select a suitable external project that you can use. In this section you need to discuss how you would apply tools and techniques such as Gantt charts, network PERT charts, forecasting budget requirements, setting cost limits and the allocation of budgets. Following on from the previous bullet point, you need to explain what methods you would use to monitor progress, such as CPA, project status reports, budget reports, change management reports, etc. On bullet point 4, you need to give a brief description of what change control is and why it is necessary to have procedures for this, plus it would help to show an example of such a procedure as applied to the project you have selected. Finally, you'll need to briefly explain the review and evaluation process that occurs at the very last stage of any project and explain why it is so important, and think here about lessons learned and apply this to your selected project. A Google search using the phrase project plus review and evaluation plus example will lead to many useful examples, as will visiting the websites recommended at the end of this podcast. Don't forget that you also need to add a list of sources of information and references showing any books, websites, articles, case studies, reports, internal documents and people interviewed that you drew on in order to complete your assignment. The sources of information and references are not included in your word count. Here is a list of websites you should find useful when completing this assignment. And if you need any further help or assistance with this assignment, please contact your tutor.